Tonight, the unimaginable happens inside Buckingham Palace. King Charles signs a secret order that strips Camilla of the title Queen, ends her royal duties, and rewrites royal history in a single signature. This is how her reign officially ends tonight. It's over, the night Charles signs Camilla's fate. Past midnight in the blue drawing room at Buckingham Palace, King Charles III sits alone at a long table. In front of him lies a single sheet of parchment. Order in Council Number 412. Revocation of the title of Queen Consort. This is the same formal style used for real royal business, the kind of document normally approved in the Privy Council and then filed quietly by government lawyers. The wording is cold and clear. It removes the style Her Majesty the Queen from Camilla, ends her position as Counselor of State, and states she will no longer carry out duties on behalf of the Crown. In real life, that counselor role allows senior royals to sign documents and stand in when the monarch is ill or abroad. Tonight, on paper, that power is being taken away. Around Charles are only a few figures: the Lord Chancellor, the Lord President of the Council, and senior courtiers who have spent decades handling titles, proclamations, and quiet changes to royal status. No cameras, no family, just witnesses to history. Charles picks up his pen and signs Charles R. in 3 steady strokes. Behind that small signature sits their whole shared story. A 34-year love affair, the scandal of 3 of us in this marriage, years of public hatred, and then his long fight to have her accepted and crowned beside him. Now, he is the one ending her reign. For viewers built on real law and very real royal scars. From third person to queen, why ending her reign is nuclear. To understand why Charles ending Camilla's reign is so explosive, you have to go back to the Diana years. In 1995, sitting in front of the BBC cameras for the Panorama interview, Diana said the line that changed everything. "There were 3 of us in this marriage." She was talking about Charles and Camilla. In one sentence, she turned Camilla from a private companion into a public villain for an entire generation. Before that, people suspected the affair. After that, it was confirmed on primetime television. Then came Tampongate, the leaked phone call between Charles and Camilla in the early 1990s, where intimate comments were splashed across the tabloids. For many, it made their relationship look shameless and childish, and it burned the idea of Camilla as the other woman even deeper into the public mind. When Diana died in 1997, the story froze. Beloved young princess gone, cold husband, hidden mistress. For years, Camilla stayed in the background. Gradually, Charles's team pushed her forward with carefully managed charity work, low-key appearances, and soft-focus interviews. The goal was simple: turn the woman blamed for Diana's misery into someone the public could at least tolerate. The turning point came in 2022, when Queen Elizabeth II used her Platinum Jubilee message to say it was her sincere wish that Camilla be known as Queen Consort when Charles became king. That was the ultimate establishment blessing, after decades of scandal. So in this story, when Charles signs away her crown, he isn't just ending a marriage. He is detonating decades of royal PR, reversing his mother's final public wish, and admitting that something so serious has happened that even this long, painful redemption arc has to be erased. Old suspicions resurface, media wars, leaks, and Camilla's reputation. As soon as news breaks in this story that Camilla has lost the title Queen Consort, people don't just ask, "What happened now?" They go back to what they have heard for years: briefings, leaks, and quiet media wars between royal households. For a long time, there have been rumors that different royal offices trade stories to protect their own boss. Staff move from one team to another. Gossip flows, and somehow the press always seem to get a source close to the palace, pointing the finger at someone else. Into that climate came Prince Harry's real-world claims. In interviews and in Spare, he called Camilla dangerous and said she left bodies in the street in her effort to clean up her image. He suggested she and her people sometimes fed private details to the tabloids in exchange for better headlines. Those are his words, not proven in court, but they lodged in the public mind. People also noticed patterns. When Harry and Meghan were hit with bad coverage, there were often softer stories about Charles and Camilla in the same papers. Commentators started to ask if someone, somewhere, was doing a deal. Princess Anne's leaked Windsor Circle files land in a world already primed to believe the worst. Memos talking about adjusting succession optics and minimizing Catherine's presence beside William don't feel random. They fit the rumors people have heard for years. So when the documents point back to Camilla's office, the reaction is simple. Many people are not shocked. They feel confirmed. The idea that she has been pulling strings behind the scenes hardens into truth in the public mind, and support for stripping her crown suddenly looks like justice, not cruelty.
Charles alone with the files, haunted by his own past.
In the early hours of the 9th of October, 2023, the corridors of Buckingham Palace are dark and quiet. Charles is awake, alone in his private study. On his desk are 47 leaked documents and fresh reports gathered overnight. Every page links back to Camilla's office. Staff reshuffles, media talking points, notes about which engagements should be reduced or pushed. He reads a memo suggesting the quiet removal of a press officer who refused to tone down coverage of Catherine. Another note recommends keeping William off certain joint appearances to rebalance attention. The language is dry, but Charles hears something else in it: the same court games and quiet briefings that poisoned his first marriage. He can't avoid the memories. In the 1980s and 1990s, he also used friendly journalists to get his side of the story out when things with Diana were collapsing. Private complaints ended up in print, and the family tore itself apart in the headlines. It nearly broke the monarchy once already. Now he sees the pattern repeating, only worse. Back then, the crossfire was between him, Diana, and Camilla. This time, the target is the heir and his wife, the couple the crown needs to survive the next 50 years. As dawn begins to color the sky over London, Charles understands the choice in front of him. If he protects Camilla now, he risks letting the same slow rot hollow out the institution again. If he stops her, he is not just a husband. He becomes a king prepared to act against his own household. The forged Regency codicil, ghosts of abdication, and constitutional trauma. Later that same day, another file lands on Charles's desk. This one feels different the moment he sees the heading: Regency Proposal, Draft A 2021. Inside is a supposed private codicil, written as if it came from him, naming Camilla as sole regent if he becomes too ill to rule, and quietly removing Catherine from any constitutional role. Charles knows enough law to feel sick. Under the real Regency Acts, decisions about who acts for the monarch are made by Parliament, not by secret side papers. A private will cannot rewrite the line of authority. If this document were ever treated as real, it would throw the whole system into doubt. The discovery brings back old ghosts. People still talk about Edward VIII and Wallace Simpson, the abdication in 1936, when a king's private relationship forced a full constitutional crisis and changed the succession forever. Back then, Parliament had to clean up the mess. Charles can almost hear historians making the comparison already. The draft is on Camilla's personal stationery. The wax image of the royal signet has been lifted from a digital file and reproduced. Attached notes even mention her granddaughter Eliza as a future liaison in royal communications, nudging her own family closer to the center of power. You make it clear to viewers, but it shows how dangerous it would be if a consort ever tried to tilt regency powers in their own favor, and why this discovery pushes Charles toward an extreme decision. Clarence House confrontation. Old resentments come to the surface. By late afternoon, Charles has one more job he can't delegate. He leaves Buckingham Palace for Clarence House, the London home he has shared with Camilla for decades. Those rooms saw the start of her slow rehabilitation, the first cautious photo calls, the carefully chosen interviews, the dinners where skeptical guests were persuaded to accept her. Now, they're about to hold something very different. Waiting in the drawing room is Princess Anne, a red dispatch folder on her lap. She has already read everything: the influence memos, the Regency draft, the seal analysis. When Charles arrives, she reminds him of the deal everyone understood back in 2005 when he married Camilla. The Queen agreed on the basis that Camilla would support the institution quietly, not try to dominate it, not reopen old wounds about Diana by overshadowing William and Catherine. Camilla enters expecting a family discussion. Instead, Anne lays out the evidence in blunt terms: the memos about adjusting succession optics, the pressure on staff who protected Catherine's profile, the forged-style Regency paper that sidelines the heir's household. Anne accuses her of repeating the same palace games that once wrecked Charles's first marriage and nearly broke the monarchy. Camilla pushes back. She lists her own scars: years of being booed, blamed for Diana's suffering, mocked in the tabloids. She says she has simply done what everyone else does in that building: fought for survival. The argument drags 4 decades into one room. Diana's pain, the Queen's reluctant approval, public hatred, private guilt, Harry's recent attacks. Charles leaves knowing this isn't just about one forged document. It's about a pattern he can no longer pretend not to see. The investigation, using tools forged by past scandals. The morning of October 12, 2023, Charles calls an emergency meeting back at Buckingham Palace. In the blue drawing room, his private secretary, the Attorney General, senior courtiers, and digital forensics experts take their places around a table covered in red document boxes. This time, Charles is not asking for opinions. He gives a single order: authenticate everything. The palace has learned from past disasters: the cash for honors rows, lobbying questions, the way the BBC handled the Diana interview, that vague suspicions are not enough. They need hard proof. Specialists go to work. They scan printers and servers linked to Camilla's office, building a timeline of when the Regency proposal, Draft A, and the influence memos were created, edited, and printed. Handwriting experts compare notes on the margins to known samples from Camilla and her aides. Cyber teams trace how the royal signet image was copied from a secure digital archive and dropped into the forged-style document. Step by step, the trail leads back to a small group around the Queen Consort. 3 senior staff are quietly suspended and their security passes revoked. No statements, no headlines, just a discreet reassignment, that old hands at the palace recognize as code for serious trouble. Unlike Edward VIII's abdication, when the crisis burst into public almost at once, this drama is kept tightly sealed. Charles is trying to do something new for the monarchy. Use law, forensics, and internal discipline to contain a scandal before it explodes in Parliament or on the front pages. Drafting the decree, learning from Andrew, Diana, and Meghan. By the time the investigators finish, Charles knows he can't just shuffle staff and hope this dies down. In his study at Buckingham Palace, he starts to shape something the monarchy almost never uses against its own, a formal order to rewrite a consort's status. On his desk is a draft heading, Order in Council 412, on the style and functions of the Queen Consort. He looks back at how similar crises were handled. When his marriage to Diana collapsed, she kept the title Princess of Wales, but lost the style Her Royal Highness after the divorce. When Prince Andrew fell over the Epstein scandal, he kept his dukedom, but was stripped of public roles and forced to step back from appearances and patronages. With Harry and Meghan, the Sandringham deal let them stay Duke and Duchess of Sussex, but removed HRH in practice and cut official funding. Those moments taught the palace a hard rule: legal status, public style, and practical role can be separated. You can remain family, but not front line. In this story, Charles applies that logic to Camilla. The draft order keeps her as his wife in private law, but removes the style Queen, takes away her position as Counselor of State, and withdraws her from royal duties. On paper, she becomes a royal spouse with no constitutional function and no public role. He insists on one key line, that the decision is made for the stability of the crown and the integrity of the succession. He wants it clear this isn't personal revenge, it's about protecting William and Catherine and the future of the monarchy from any hint that the consort has tried to interfere with regency or media control. Under the UK system, he cannot do this entirely alone. The draft will go to the Prime Minister and senior ministers. Quietly, they agree it is better to take one decisive hit now than to let another slow scandal eat away at trust, the way Andrew and the Sussex drama did for years. The public announcement: old grievances fuel today's cheers. On 14th October 2023. In this story, the press are rushed into a briefing room at Buckingham Palace. Cameras are already live when the King's spokesman steps up to the podium under the royal crest. In a steady voice, he reads the line no one expected to hear. By Order in Council 412, Camilla is no longer Queen Consort, and she will no longer serve as Counselor of State or carry out duties on behalf of the Crown. For a moment, the room is silent. Then reporters start shouting questions. Outside the gates, word spreads in seconds. Some people cheer, not just for Charles's strength, but because it feels like the past's finally catching up. They remember Diana's tears, the three of us in this marriage interview, and years when Camilla was the symbol of that pain. Flowers begin to appear again at Kensington Palace, just like in 1997, with notes saying things like "for Diana" and "justice at last." Pollsters explain on air that Camilla's popularity was always fragile. She never reached the approval levels of William, Catherine, or Anne, and older Diana loyalists in particular never fully accepted her as queen. That makes it easier for the public to side with Charles and Anne. Now, the documents suggest she crossed a constitutional line. Commentators also point back to Elizabeth II's Platinum Jubilee message blessing Camilla as Queen Consort, and say, if Charles has reversed his own mother's last public wish, something extraordinary must have driven him to sign this decree. Aftermath: a monarchy rebuilt on old lessons. In the days after the announcement, Camilla quietly leaves Clarence House and retreats to Ray Mill House in Wiltshire, the private home she owned long before she became queen. It's where she used to escape the cameras, host her children and grandchildren, and live more like a country neighbor than a royal consort. Now, in this story, it becomes her permanent base, still Charles's wife, but no longer the woman beside him on the throne. The pattern feels familiar. The House of Windsor has done this before. Wallis Simpson ended her life abroad with the former king, Edward VIII, after abdication. Sarah Ferguson kept her Duchess title, but lived outside royal duties after divorcing Andrew. Harry and Meghan built a new life in Montecito, thousands of miles from the palace they once called home. Problems are not erased. They are moved off stage. Inside Buckingham Palace, power narrows. The public face of the monarchy becomes a tight group. Charles as an aging king, William and Catherine as the clear future, and Anne as the relentless worker who helped force this crisis into the open. It is the slimmed-down monarchy that had been talked about for years, finally born out of necessity. For viewers, you leave one final truth. In real life, Charles is genuinely fighting cancer. William and Catherine are genuinely the most popular royals, and Anne is genuinely the Iron Sister. But it shows how many old wounds and lessons would crash together if a king ever really signed away his queen's crown. One signature, one night. Camilla's reign is over forever now.